Hello peeps, Dee here. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to this little class. Yes, we're going to begin by making what I call a fulcrum cane, which is this. And then we're going to turn it into beads, 2 beads. This one where we use the fulcrum cane as a band, and we have some end caps, white and black. And then we're going to move into this one. I think this is really sweet little thing. And that is what we're going to do. We're making beads. So it's time to get started. You'll need approximately 2 ounces of white and 2 ounces of black. These have been rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. You're also going to need a business card. Now, we're going to start by stacking both of these sheets up into thick slabs. And the business card is just a measuring device. So, let me just center myself. It'll go this way. So I'm just going to cut around the business card. Cut one, place it on top of the other, or rather place it on top of the sheet, trim. Then if you don't have enough for a whole other piece, of course you just take what you have, roll it through the pasta machine. Let's see if that's big enough. Roll it through one more time. And see if we can cut one more shape. We're almost there. I'm just going to use it because we're actually going to be cutting a bit off the slab. Now take the third and press it to the other 2 like so. All right. Now I will complete this slab process with the white, and then I will break because I don't think you want to watch the whole process again when I do it with the black, but you will repeat this process with this black clay. All right, so I'm going to take a ruler because what I want are 1 inch wide by the width of the business card, and I want 3 of them. 1, then move it and cut. And I like this ruler very much because I can see through it. And measure quite easily. And you see, this is where that excess comes in at the end. And that's why that third piece, it was not critical that it was exactly the size of the business card. Now we will stack these. 1 atop the other. So that is the first slab. So I'm going to cut, I'm going to do it in black, and then I'll be back. Let's talk about defining what we're looking at when we look at the cane. The pattern is the face. You have two faces. Then, of course, you have the top of the cane, you have the bottom, and you have the sides. But the face is important. Let's look at our slab. You have sort of undefined. All you have is white clay running in different directions. Now, for this particular cane, it's really important to know what the face of the cane will be. The face of the cane will look like this. You see the layers of the cane, of the slab. This is not the face. This will either be the top or the bottom. Top or the bottom. You must see these layers and the strata of this slab of clay. This is the face. Now, the problem, if you do it another way, in other words, if you make this the face and you construct it, when you go to reduce the cane this way, you will pull all these layers apart as you're reducing. And that's why we make this the face, so that when we reduce, we're pulling sheets of clay out this way. We're not pulling layers apart, which would happen if you made this or this, the solid planes, the face of the cane. So I hope you understand that. I hope I didn't make it more confusing. Just remember that when you construct your cane, the pattern will be made and you will see these layers through the white and through the black triangle. I think it'll become more clear as we work. All right, so the next step is actually to cut the triangles. But the first thing we're going to do is just even out the sides. These are quite irregular. Okay, even out the sides. Now, I just went through that explanation of the face of the cane because I taught the class in Atlantic City and I neglected to do that. So some of you who were there in Atlantic City probably found that as you were reducing your cane, you were having some difficulty. Might have been splitting on you. And that is my fault for not explaining. All right, so let's begin. Now, they're not exactly the same size, or are they? Oh, they're really close. So we're in good shape. Okay, now I want you to flip it to a solid side. And remember, this is the top. I've just determined that this is the top of the cane. And about 1/3 from one edge, I'm just going to make a mark like that. I'm going to repeat it on the other cane. The other slab, excuse me, in the same place. All right, so you can see. Now I will flip it to the face of the cane. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut straight down through from this point. You can see where it is in relation to that mark I made on the top to this corner. So I will cut there. I will also cut from the same place on the top to the opposite corner on the bottom, like this. Okay, so let's do it. Now cut very slow and walk it down through the cane. Now, I keep saying cane, I'm sorry, through the slab. Now, this technique is really Sandra McCaw's technique. She does very precise cane work. And so she would slowly walk the blade through, not just quickly slice like that. So I will walk, and then I will look at the other side, come down. Now I'm looking at the left side. I'm cutting a bit, looking at the right side, going back to the left, cutting a bit, going back to the right, cutting a bit, and literally walking the blade down through the clay. Okay, so that's the first cut. Do not squish this piece. Just set it aside. Now let's repeat with the other. Walk the blade down. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, and through. Once again, do not squish this piece up. Now let's repeat with the black. From this reference, I will make a mark to the other corner. That's where I'll cut. Then from the same point at the top to the opposite corner, I will cut. Walk the blade down through the slab. Set this aside. Repeat. Walk, 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 walk. Okay. Now the black clay is a bit stiffer than the white. I can tell because as I was cutting, the blade wasn't pulling the clay down like this. You can see the difference. See, this cut is much crisper across the top. This one is kind of, and it kind of rounds down like that. So what you're going to do with the one that rounds down is, of course, you're just going to take and just gently pull it back out with your fingers. Do the best you can just to make it crisp. Okay, there we go. That's better. Let's do this one. Let's do the white one. That one will be the second cane. Now, when you put this together, make sure that these stripes are aligned. You see, not like this, where these stripes will be coming down, hitting the corner, and then the stripes will go off, forming like a 90-degree angle with the layers. You want them to be aligned the same way, like this. So you can see that the layers are all running the same direction. Very important, when you put it together, leave a space of the other color at the top. Okay? Now, what happens if you, this is why, the reason why we do this is because each of these triangles is connected, and that connection is this very thin, the very thin color, triangle color, that meets the bottom of the next triangle above it. And if you don't leave this space, you have triangles that are kind of floating in space. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Could be a beautiful cane. But this particular cane, we want the triangles to be connected in this way. Okay, let's get the other one. Same thing, just make sure you leave that small space. Okay, so here's the basic construction of the cane, like so. Let's do this one. You can see, that's my dog. You can see, well, you can hear him. You can see my finger. So I'm just trying to restore the shape because the white clay did squish down. Okay. Leave the space. Put it together. Here we go. You can clearly see where it's squished here. It's flattened. Pull it up. Leave the space. Put it together again. Okay, so if you cut a little bit crooked, as I apparently did, I can see that it's not exactly, well, actually, okay, what I'm going to do here, because I think I stretched it, you can see how it dips here. That means I kind of stretched it at that point. So I really, it's not correct. I have to fill this, this little dip in the white clay. So I think the best way to do that is going to be to take the clay at the bottom, line it up properly, and then push that white clay kind of back up to where it should be. And you can see it is better. If I had cut that off, then when we went to reduce it, it'd probably be a tiny bit off. I don't know that it would make a huge difference, but I think now we have the proper amount of clay in our cane. All right, so now I'm going to take these two and I'm going to reduce them. And I should show you. I'll reduce one of them, but I won't make you watch me do two. I always start by squeezing all sides of a cane like this, particularly if it's a rectangle. You know, squares are easier. Round canes are easier. Rectangles, I wouldn't say they're extremely difficult, but they are a little bit more problematic. You always pay attention to the corners, too. So I draw them out. Now, I think you can see as I'm reducing what would have happened if these cuts were running this way. I would be pulling and the layers would all be separating. This way, the layers are actually stretching. So it's sort of pushing and pulling and pushing and pulling. And you can see that the white clay is quite a bit softer. It's moving out faster than the black, you can see. Now I can try to pull the black out a little more to catch up with the white. But it is softer, so it's always going to want to move faster. Now, it's quite easy to lose that white or black stripe that you're going to see on the top of the cane. So make sure that it's wide enough. You see, it's not the thinnest line. It's thin, but it's not the thinnest. Because as you reduce, you don't want to lose it. Now I'm going to reduce this out to approximately 7 inches. At some point, you can start twisting and pulling the ends. I do a lot of this too. I will actually put the cane down and then pull and stroke. And primarily I'm stroking to the right, pulling to the left. I am right-handed, maybe that's why. Now, let's see how long we've got. And that's more than 7 inches, so I'm going to stop. If you're at all familiar with my work, then you know I don't make humongous, intricately patterned canes. I tend to make very simple canes. And those simple canes are then used to make more complicated pieces. Now, I could give you some like really fancy reason for doing that, but the fact of the matter is I lack a certain arm strength that is really required if you're going to do that kind of caning. Okay? And I just don't have it. And also, I'm not quite sure what to do with extremely complex canes a lot. I make them and it's a challenge. I have made them and it's a challenge. But then at the end of the challenge, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do with them. Yeah, I confess. That's what this is. It's a confession. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that it almost looks like an equilateral triangle. And that's not what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to correct the shape by flattening it. a little bit more. Thing is, if I tried to make an equilateral triangle, I probably would make some other kind of triangle. So let me just flatten it. All right. Let's cut it in half. Okay, and then you don't want to put them in registration. You want it offset. So the point of one triangle is not going to sit right on top of the point of another. Okay. And then I do these 4 up. In other words, 4 triangles up. 1 3/4. Like so. Now you can see that the canes tend to be more squashed. So all I do then is flatten it with my fingers a little more. You know, this pattern, I really like this pattern a lot. But it's not a very fussy cane pattern to make. If you're off a little bit, nobody's going to know. Because honestly, what is off in a cane like this? I mean, what would we consider mistakes in a cane like this? I guess the only mistake in the cane would be the slices, or the triangles, excuse me, not being connected. Okay, so there we go. Now, I will do the black one, and then I'll be back. All right, my peeps, now you know how to make this cane. Now, ordinarily, my canes are just sitting in a baker's tray, in a baker's rolling rack, but I decided the other day, okay, about a month ago, that I should wrap them up because they were getting dusty. So some of you have asked, well, what do you do with your canes? What do you do? Well, you can wrap it in saran wrap like this. Actually, this is not technically saran wrap. This is Costco plastic wrap. Okay, I buy a great big massive roll, and unless you're very young, you won't ever have to buy plastic wrap again. Yeah, it's a huge, huge, huge roll. Anyway, so here we go. So let me unwrap them. Now, interesting, because I do not, as I said, wrap my canes up, but I took a cane that I had wrapped up and started to reduce it, and you know what? I swear it was easier to reduce after spending time in this Costco plastic wrap. Now, I don't know if it's just a Costco wrap, if it works for saran wrap. I think Glad wrap is the one you don't want to use because it eats clay. All right, So you can see that these are just in various states of reduction. This is an ecru off-white. I like this. This is a really nice border. But I think today, well, let's make a border. Why not? Okay, so I'm going to take, pardon me, let's just take this guy because it's big. And let's see, because of course this is also, because it's rather large on the face and rather narrow, thin, there's not a heck of a lot of it. It should really be the most difficult one to reduce of all the ones I have sitting before me. I like this cane. I call it a Fulcrum cane. That's what it looks like to me. You know, Fulcrum, that one point. This is, and the one on top is balanced on that one point, and it goes back and forth like that. Yeah, see, look at this. See, it's already kind of noodly, which is totally better than being dried out. Which is, I think, what it might be. It might be dried out and dusty. Oh, yeah, look at that. Well, I should have been wrapping all my canes in plastic wrap. But at least I know now. I got a little thingy, a boo-boo. I got a boo-boo. I don't know how that happened. Yeah, look at that. Okay, twisting just a bit. It's okay. It's okay. Come on, center. Catch up. Catch up. Now, of course, if you like this, you're going to want to make a bigger cane. Yeah, bigger cane. But to make a border like this, you're going to take that larger cane and you're going to reduce it down quite tiny. Because look, all the work I did, and I'm still, yeah, I have more to go. Not a problem. It's one of the best things about polymer clay, isn't it? When you cane, this whole magic of reduction thing. I still remember, yeah, when I first started clay, being totally amazed. And actually, I remember not believing it. Yeah, I'm like, no, you can't do that. What do you mean? What do you mean you can make it smaller and the pattern and the image stays the same? It's like, that's not possible. Hello. And of course, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Yeah, yeah. How I love clay. I love clay. I am so lucky. Lucky, lucky, lucky. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found clay. What would I be doing today? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Actually, I think I know. I think I would probably be working with my ex-husband, or I would have spent my life working with my ex-husband doing audio. Actually, no, I wouldn't have a job if I did that, because once upon a time, I worked network news as a stringer. I was the bass man doing the audio, and my ex-husband was the cameraman. Okay, so we have to cut the ends off, of course. So let's see how much we have to cut off. Could be a lot, could be a lot. I could say that's good. I think I will, because I'm a little nervous. I'm going to cut it all off. I'll end up with like nothing. Yeah, these days, news is done by one guy with a cell phone. Okay, I'm not sure using cell phones, but certainly you could. Because the video on my cell phone is as good as that JVC recorder, JVC camera and recorder that weighed 30 pounds. I used to lug around my neck. Now, at this point, I want to turn it. You see what's happening here? Because if I do this, these 2 points of the fulcrum are in the same place. So, of course, I want to flip this over like so. Let's cut it in half again. This is enough to make a couple beads. And let's make sure that I've got it going the right direction again. Yeah, I like this as a border. A border. Maybe a little roundy bead. Cool, huh? Easy enough. I have a little border cane. This one is more, well, it's larger. Actually, it's not larger in size, but if you look at it, you can see that the original triangles were probably more like this. I mean, not so round, perhaps, but if you look at if you compare the amount of white and black, there's a lot more white in this one, and there's a lot more ecru in this than there is in here. This is very fine. So the triangles in the original piece weren't all that big. You know, they were kind of slender. All right. So here I've got scrap clay cylinder. And I'm going to make the hole first. I'm going to put a hole in here now. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait for just a moment. All right. Now, I have some black clay that I am going to roll through the pasta machine now. Just to condition up just a little tiny bit. Like that. Now, I don't know the setting for this yet because the setting has to match whatever I cut here. Let's give it a go. First slice is usually like that. Not a whole slice, although parts of it are good. I'm going to keep it. Okay, let's do it. So, you know what? Usually my goal is about 1.5 millimeters. Not very thick, because you know what? It doesn't have to be. Now, let's roll this, and I'm going to try to match the thickness of this. 3. Let's try 4. 4. Ooh, that's pretty darn good. Okay. I guess I'll stick with this. Now, I'm going to roll some white. I have some white right here. White. More or less white. Now I'm going to run this underneath the rollers. Just running it back and forth because that's where the schmutz collects for me, is underneath the rollers. Now let's roll our white through the same thickness. And this is more or less white. But I'm going to tell you something. Most of my white in my studio is more or less white. Okay, so now I've got my... Okie dokie. Now, let's give this a go. Just going to cut a strip. But first, I think perhaps I'll put my cane slice on. Please, please, come. Let me just do it about right here. Try to wrap it around straight like that. Uh-oh. Well, I just so happen to have a little piece here. Okay, there we go. Now let's just cut this. I'm going to save that in case I need it. Now I'm going to take this little strip, if I can get my hands on it. Let's cut the end. I think I would like to put this, you know, it's feeling, no, I guess it's right. It's a little bit thick in there. Because when we cut our cane slices, we are not machines. I am not a machine. We do our best, but we are not machines. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a little strip of white because, you know what, why not? Why not? I think it might be more interesting. I could be wrong. We'll see. I haven't done this particular bead before. Now, just gonna roll it. Okay, pretty good. Now, I'm going to cut this like so. I'm going to cut so that I leave the same amount of black on the other side. Well, I'm trying to. Something along these lines. Maybe there's a little more white. So let's just chop off a bit, like so. Now, let's just put the hole in now. You don't have to put the hole in after the bead is made. You can actually put the hole in, particularly if you have like this kind of thing happening, right? So you've got a little sort of cylindrical plug. Okay, let's close her up. My little owie. I only have one hand. Now, it starts pulling away here. I'm not too concerned about that because when I start rolling, the clay will kind of meet. That will close up. Okay, so let's do the other side. Same thing. I am trying just to coax the white up and over the scrap. Oh, this would be a sweet little bead, I think. You know, I think that this would be a nice bead, and sort of, you know, if you were to make a lot of mud cloth canes, this is another bead that might work very well with all those mud cloth border type beads. You can alter the colors, maybe use the mud cloth colors instead of black and white, so you'd use the coppers and the browns and the ecru's and the ochres. Okay, I'm just gonna roll it now. I wonder how many beads I've rolled in 30 years. It is impossible to tell. Okay, so that's pretty good, but see how this is like that? Well, I can straighten that out a bit. I might not be able to completely correct it, but see what I'm doing? The clay responds that way in the direction you're rolling. I can't see it on this side. Even if it wasn't perfect on this side, I couldn't see it. But on this side, I can clearly see that the line between the cane and the white clay is not perfect. And I'm being fussy here because I'm making one bead. Now, if you were making like hundreds of these, you probably wouldn't sit and go, you know, you might just say, okay, that is bead number 99. I am moving on. Okay, let's flatten this guy. Let's just flatten him. I like this shape. Sort of chubby drum barrel shape. This would be nice. You get a whole strand of these going, and you have the black on one side and the white on the other. Yeah. Well, too bad I can only make like 5. Ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Okay, let me make a few more. I'm going to pop them in the oven. Now, you're going to follow the manufacturer's instructions. Okay, I used to put curing instructions in, but I do not know what clay you're using. I only know what clay I'm using. So my recommendation to you is to follow your manufacturer's instructions. Whatever clay you're using, they put it on the package. Yeah, so just read that and follow. Okay, I'll be back. All right, you know, before I finish my second bead, this is probably obvious to you guys, but if you're going to make a lot of the same thing, you're going to work out your system, right? You're not going to have a little tiny cylinder like this. You're going to know exactly what the diameter of your center cylinder is. You're going to know exactly how many millimeters this is and the black is. You're going to know all those things so that you can reproduce the same thing over and over again. Right now, this is the second one off of the same central core, so theoretically it's the same size. But maybe I cut this a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner. Maybe the white strip is a little bit wider or a little bit shorter. You know, so you want to work those things out so that you can reproduce the same thing as closely as possible. Yeah, so that's my advice. That's my advice. That's the only advice. It's the only advice I have. Yeah. If you're making one of anything, that's easy, right? I mean, one bead. If you're going to make earrings, you want to make absolutely sure that what you're making is the same size. Okay, so let me finish this bead and I'll be back. I'm only going to make 2 beads. Oh my goodness. 2 beads. 2 beads. Okay, peeps, so the second bead is bigger. See? Second bead is most definitely bigger. Now, how can I make it smaller? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut the middle out. I'm going to take something kind of smallish, like this guy. Let me see if I can just remove some clay from the core and start pushing everything in first, then closing it up, then cutting off this schmutz that I just put on. Yeah. Okay, now let's try closing this up, just making it physically a bit smaller. Because, you know, why not? It's a volume problem right now. And the larger volume is changing the pattern. Now, let's see how much I removed. Maybe I have to remove more, but that I think might be a little closer. Okay, see, there's clay stuck in here. So maybe I should have used one that's a tiny bit. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and do it so you guys can see. Okay, I'm not trying to do anything other than teach you what I can about beads like this. Okay, so I'm going to start by doing that. Just trying to make the hole smaller. Pushing that clay in, reducing the size of the hole. Like that. Yeah. I think maybe this is going to do it. There's just a smaller volume of clay now. Okay, now let's just roll it. Roll it and do the same adjustment, like so. Pinch down a bit and take a look, and it's still a wee bit larger. Maybe I can just, maybe it's just that the shape is not right. Maybe it's a shape problem. How are we looking here? I think it's closer. It's much closer now. So just remember that little trick too, guys. You want to make a bead smaller. You have something and you don't necessarily, particularly for a shape like this, if it's easier if it's like a long, what I've done before, if you have a pod shape something like this. This is raw. This was an experiment. But let's say I wanted to make it smaller. Well, if you want to make something like this smaller, you can just lop off the end, close it, and you have made it smaller. But something like this, when you've shaped it already and you've squashed it and flattened it, what is the easiest way to remove any volume from this piece? It is definitely just cutting the core out and then pushing everything back in. Okay, now these two are going to be put in the oven, much closer in size. Then I'll be back. Okay, peeps, I know I said that I would be back. I'm going to texture these. You know, if you've watched it all, you know, I sand when I have to, but when I don't have to, I don't do it. I like texture anyway. If truth be told, most of the time I prefer my pieces textured rather than sanded, rather than shiny. Because, and this is just my personal opinion, but sometimes you shine a polymer clay and it looks more like plastic. Okay, so definitely there are times when you would sand and polish when you're doing translucents, like layering translucents. I mean, the shine and the nice smooth surface really enhance that translucent effect. But for things like this, now, I mean, particularly if I were going to make a lot of them, I don't want to sit and sand beads. I just don't. I would rather do this, texture them, on my dual plex Frigiliner. Okay. So I am going to bake them now. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so these are out of the oven. I like them. I like them. Now, let's take a step back and let's make a bead without the caps on the end, without the black and the white added. All right. Because it is not essential that you work it that way. Just wrap it around like so. Need a little bit more. Okay. Like that. It's going to cut off the scrap clay. Roll. Then push the ends in slightly and then bring the pattern up and close it over the scrap. Now, I'm not concerned about a little bit of scrap showing because I think when I use them, I think you won't see that. Okay, let's roll. And this time I'll put the hole in after. I like this one. Da, 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 da. Excellent. Let's roll a little more. Oh, these are cute. These are good looking beads. Almost looks like a basket. I can see doing these too in browns and tans and ochres. There. Pretty cool. Well, here we are at the end of class. As you can see, you can make quite a tiny cane and still make 4, 6, 9 beads and have some left over. Yeah, these are my leftovers. Actually, I could make one more bead if I'm really careful about separating this, taking some pieces off. So you don't have to make massive canes. It's amazing how far the clay does go. So I hope you enjoyed the class. I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you continue to watch. Yeah. Really appreciate it. And if you liked it, please like. And if you liked it enough to want to see more, then I guess you'll subscribe. So thank you so much. Until we meet again, I'm Donna Kato, signing off.